The nightmare at Fairmont Crest has never been more intense. Amidst the fake golden walls of power and fame, a horrifying secret is revealed, a secret that could destroy the entire Dupree clan. Naomi, once the epitome of ambition and beauty, has become a creature whose very flesh and blood are no longer enough to sustain her humanity. While Jacob, the man who seemed the most steadfast and loyal, witnesses a truth that shatters his soul. A burned ultrasound, a secret phone call with Vernon, and one last look between the two of them turn love into an abyss of betrayal. From that moment on, there is no room for trust, only conspiracy, hatred, and a game of survival where anyone can be the next prey. The dim light at the end of the hallway seemed to be swallowing Jacob's footsteps as he stopped, his breath coming in short gasps and his heart pounding in his chest. From the crack of the door, a small sound like the tapping of a keyboard mixed with the rustling of paper rang out, enough to make him clearly feel that he was witnessing something he shouldn't have seen. Naomi sat at the table, her face as calm as a stone statue, holding an ultrasound with her name clearly printed in medical handwriting. Next to her was Madison, her sharp eyes showing no emotion. On the computer screen, Vernon's image appeared in the dim light, his deep and firm voice coming through the speaker, a secret meeting, a prearranged plan. Naomi signaled, Madison nodded, and in just a few seconds, a data file was sent. At that moment, Naomi's lips curled slightly, her smile as thin as a knife, enough to make Jacob clearly feel that she had gone too far, crossed the line between love and betrayal. The key in Jacob's hand fell to the floor, the small metal clang echoed terribly in the quiet space. Naomi turned around, her gaze meeting his through the crack of the door. In that moment, time seemed to stop. Jacob wanted to step in, wanted to ask, wanted to scream to understand why the woman he loved had engaged in such a cruel game. But he couldn't speak, only saw Naomi bend down slightly, take out a lighter, and burn the ultrasound. The small flame licked the edge of the paper, the light reflected on her face, cold, empty, as if the child had never existed. Jacob couldn't breathe. That image tore apart every last illusion he had. He had believed that inside Naomi there was still a part of humanity, a fragile piece of weakness and emotion. But now, he only saw in her a void of power, a bottomless abyss wrapped in perfect beauty. When the fire died down, Naomi stood up, turned away, as if nothing had happened. Madison gathered up her papers, and left the room coldly. Jacob stood there, motionless, watching the smoke rise and disappear. In that smoke, he saw the end, not just of a love, but of his own humanity. Because once you witness the one you love burn their own life, all that remains in your heart is a hollow hatred. He understood that Naomi had not only betrayed him, but also the fragile humanity she had once pretended to possess. In the days that followed, Jacob remained silent. He did not confront, did not speak of what he had seen. But inside, anger smoldered. He began to retrace the chain of events step by step, each call, each report. Every trace led to Vernon, the head of the family, the one who always called himself the defender of Dupree's honor. Now, he understood, Naomi was just a tool in his plan, and the child was discarded because it could upset the balance of power they had worked so hard to build. Jacob didn't know what Vernon had promised Naomi, or what she had sacrificed to gain a foothold in the web of evil. But he knew one thing for sure, Naomi had chosen the other side, the side of the controllers, the ones who no longer knew fear. Jacob began to retrace Naomi's past connections. He found copies of the internal systems data, discovered a series of anonymous transactions between Madison and secret accounts coded with Vernon's initials. A string of dirty money used to bribe doctors, to alter test results, to erase all evidence of the pregnancy. The more Jacob read, the more he felt himself drawn into the darkness. He realized that he had been the weakest link in the system, the one used, manipulated by emotions, by the illusion of love. His hatred did not come out in a scream or anger. It was insidious, quiet, and much more terrifying. He began to change, cold, calculating, precise. Jacob did not want to expose Naomi immediately. He wanted her to destroy herself. He gathered information, copied the data, and created a fake report, similar to what Naomi had done, and sent it back to Vernon, along with an anonymous warning. He knew Vernon would suspect Naomi, and that suspicion would be the spark that would burn down their unholy alliance. Meanwhile, Naomi began to realize something was wrong. Vernon's calls became short and cold. Madison was suddenly summoned to the main office and disappeared for days. Everyone in the network began to watch each other with wary eyes. Naomi didn't know that it was Jacob, who had stood outside the door that night, who had started this chain of chaos. She felt the pressure mounting, control slipping away. But instead of panicking, Naomi chose to fight. She began to do what Vernon had taught her: strike before you are attacked. One morning, Jacob received a black envelope on his door. Inside was a photo, him, in the corner of the hallway that night, key in hand, eyes on the door. Someone knew he had seen it all. He understood that Naomi was no longer just defending. The game had changed, and now he was prey. The feeling of fear mixed with anger created a dangerous energy. He could not retreat, could not stop. That night, Jacob returned to Naomi's old office. It was empty. On the table was a piece of paper with her handwritten words: "Everyone must choose, Jacob. You choose the truth. I choose to survive." Under the lamplight, the words were like a knife carved into his mind. He knew Naomi would not stop, and the next time they faced each other, there would be no room for emotion or memory. There would be only a naked battle between two people who once loved each other, now bound by hatred and betrayal. When Jacob stepped out into the hallway, the last dim light of the building reflected on his face, a face that was no longer the man he used to be. Something inside him had died, along with the child Naomi had burned. But from the ashes, something else rose, cold, bloodthirsty, and unstoppable. Because when love is gone, only power remains, and in this war, both he and Naomi were willing to trade their souls for victory. As the last light faded in the hallway, leaving only the sound of wind whistling through the cracks in the door and the cold seeping into the stone walls of Fairmont Crest, Jacob knew that this nightmare had only just begun. The fire Naomi had lit that night had not only burned an innocent life, but also awakened within him a demon he could not control. She thought that by erasing the child, by burying the truth under layers of data and lies, she could escape Vernon's shadow and redefine her own power. But she had forgotten one thing: fire can burn papers, but it cannot erase the memory of the witness. Jacob became the sole witness to that crime, and with each passing day, his silence hung like a knife over Naomi's head. From afar, rumors began to spread, of an internal investigation, of leaked secret accounts, of anonymous videos sent to members of the family council. All traces led to the same place, but no one knew who was manipulating whom. Naomi remained perfect, cool and calm, but inside, fear began to sprout. She couldn't tell if Vernon was suspicious of her, or if Jacob was plotting a counterattack. And in a world where trust was the most precious commodity, one misstep could turn a predator into a victim. That night, Naomi received an anonymous text message, no signature, just a short video of flames licking at the ultrasound and her eyes reflected in it. The last line made her pale: "Everything you saw, you still remember." Naomi hung up the phone, her heart pounding. Outside, the rain began to fall, heavy and cold, as if the sky itself were punishing. And Jacob, from a dark room on the other side of Fairmont Crest, watched the computer screen light up with a faint smile. He didn't need to shout, didn't need to threaten, just let Naomi know that she was no longer the one controlling the game. But the real question remained unanswered: how much did Vernon know? Was Madison still alive? And what was hidden deeper than the forgotten child? Fairmont Crest is trembling before a new storm, and when it hits, none of them will retain what they once believed was power. For when sin is exposed, the strongest person is not the one with the secret, but the one who knows how to survive after all the secrets are burned away.